What's up, everybody? It's Dan, Binder Boneyard, coming at you from the shop. Another gray February day, although it's supposed to be getting nicer out there. Anyway, I appreciate you guys for listening, following along. If you are on YouTube, appreciate you stopping by. As of last week, now all of the podcasts are on YouTube. So if you're just discovering this, you can actually go back and listen to the last 7 years of audio podcasts on here on YouTube. Anyway, if you're not on YouTube, if you're listening on the other platforms, thank you again. It's nice to see those numbers. We actually have a lot of listens, and I really appreciate it. Again, as of right now, the show is not sponsored by anybody. So if you're hearing ads in the middle of the podcast, it is somebody else making money off of my nasally drone and not me. So, not that I wouldn't have a sponsor or something if it was a product I believed in, but as of right now, no sponsors. So anyway, appreciate everybody. Appreciate just spreading the word. So we're going to jump right in here. There's a phenomenon that happens when a vehicle or an international, whatever, sells at an auction or online someplace for a ridiculous amount of money. And that is the price jumps. A Scout 800 sold at Barrett-Jackson in Arizona a few weeks ago for like $330,000. And I know that's a lot of money. But if you saw the Scout, you would know why. I mean, this thing was meticulously put together, the best products, very well designed. And of course, it wasn't stock at all. It was a LS and automatic and had a ton of fab work and a lift and big tires. And, like the only thing Scout about it was the exterior sheet metal, pretty much. And if anybody's ever built a truck or tried to do that, you know how many cubic man hours there are in a project like that. And so, excuse me. So, for that to sell for $330,000, I'm still going to guess that the guy, made a few dollars, but he was not getting rich. And that's the thing that people kind of forget is they see the Scout that they probably took 2 years to build and has all this into it to sell for that. And they go, oh gosh, man, that guy's making tons of money. I doubt it. So that's why when I see a Scout that's, in average condition go across the block and sell for, $50,000, I'm like, oh man, that guy did not get what they wanted out of that. But no, what that means, what I'm getting at is then everyone with a Scout 800 now thinks that they are worth $200,000. Facebook Marketplace or the IH pages on Facebook are full of questionably built Scouts with, that they're asking $100,000 for. And like, that's not, first of all, the people with that kind of budget or with that kind of, what they're looking for are not shopping on Facebook Marketplace. They just aren't. A lot of times, the really rich people have people that look for them. Like we did a job years ago that was well over $100,000, and it was curated by like the assistant of a guy, a handler of a guy that was a billionaire. And so, the assistant does all the work, does all the legwork, and then, delivers the finished product to the rich guy. So first of all, if you're trying to sell a truck on marketplace for $100,000, you're not going to get it. Even if it's worth it, you're not going to get it. You're going to get ridiculed by all of us broke people that don't have the money for it in the first place. But second of all, I mean, it's just plugging up the bandwidth with dreamers and stuff, because they're not. These trucks that are asking 125, I mean, when you see the pictures and they have, they've spray painted accessories and there's overspray on the paint, on the body or on the frame or in the engine compartment, they've sprayed gloss black on the firewall and the inner fenders to try and make the engine compartment look nice. And then you see black overspray on the valve covers or the edge of the radiator or things like that. Like, they are asking too much for too little. Just accessories shouldn't make the price. Like, if you've got trail ready beadlock wheels and an LS, that's not a $50,000 truck. Like, I've seen trucks sell for, 80, 90 grand that had steel wheels. Like, it's not necessarily just throwing on some expensive, parts, some Fox shocks and whatever, and thinking you've got this super high end valuable truck. It's, a lot of it is in the execution and the details. Like, if when you're looking at these trucks, let's say you do have a budget of 80 grand, which, a lot of times I recommend guys buy a junky Scout and then have a shop build it how they want for the 80 grand. Because I guarantee you buy a done truck for 80 grand, there's going to be stuff about it you don't like. So, if somebody gets in on the ground floor to build it, then any issues can be addressed and you can get it built exactly how you want it. So you're probably money ahead. But anyway, I'm just saying, like, beware of these really high priced trucks because they almost always are not worth it. 3-gauge pods screwed to the bottom of the dash, bunch of overspray wiring hanging down. It seems like wiring is the forgotten part of all these builds. Guys will bend over backwards to do shiny paint and diamond tuck upholstery, and then none of the gauges work, and you smell burning wires every time you turn the heater on, if the heater even works. So, I mean, just personally, my own experience, there's a shop here in town that I go visit sometimes because the old guy and I get along good. And there was a Blazer in there that had been bought at Barrett Jackson, and it didn't run. It showed up on the transporter. They went to unload it, wouldn't run, wouldn't start. So it immediately goes into this shop because, my buddy's, he's an old car guy, got lots of experience with the old Chevys. And so they brought it to him. And, this guy spent close to 6 figures on this Blazer. And yeah, you open the hood and it's got, there's an LS in there, aluminum radiator, got the chrome brake booster. It's like the Summit catalog just threw up in there. But the wiring was all original, or, some form of original wiring. So like the plastic plugs for the headlight harness was like crumbling. Under the dash, they just zip tied up a bunch of red and black wires to get them out of the line of sight. things like that. They did eventually get it running, and then come to find out that, like I said, the heater didn't work. The wipers only worked on one speed, and even that speed was painfully slow. Like they did all this other work. Had a fancy fuel tank with for an in-tank pump to power the LS, and like they did all that, but they just skipped the wiring, because wiring isn't sexy, wiring isn't fun, wiring is kind of complicated. And so all these guys, they just bare minimum, if the lights work and it starts, like that's good enough. And then they tie it up and forget about it. And so you don't make any money on wiring. You'll do a full restoration and everybody sees the lift, the paint, the wheels and tires, maybe the upholstery, but nobody's like, oh man, those brake lines sure are routed nicely. Or, man, that wire is loomed up clean. Like nobody thinks of that. So these flipper guys that are trying to get 150 grand out of a Scout 2, they're not working on that. They're trying to make it look like a $150,000 car, not operate like a $150,000 car. And, it's funny. I talk to other guys that are in other sides of the automotive industry, and they say the same thing. Like it takes 2 years plus to do a frame off restoration, and then it takes another 2 years to work out all the bugs and have a really reliable, nice driving truck or car. And so I'm always, you're always curious when you see them roll across Barrett-Jackson and it's just completed restoration. Like, you're going to have problems. And that's probably what happened with that Blazer. It had just got done, the Barrett-Jackson auction was their deadline. And when you have deadlines like that, you're never done 6 months early. Like you're pushing it right up to the delivery date. And I know that from my own experience. Like I look at the calendar and go, oh yeah, that's 8 months away. No problem. And then, I'm working on it on the trailer as it's being delivered to the customer. Cause that's just how it happens sometimes. But, the upside to how we do stuff here is we're not trying to nurse along existing stuff. Like if I'm doing a restoration, it's all new everything. So if something doesn't work, it's either a bad part out of the box or, some detail we overlooked, which I really go out of my way to make sure that doesn't happen. 99% of the time when the trucks roll out of here, they're pretty much dialed. Very rarely, we did have an 800 or an 80 leave here a while back that after about 6 months, fuel started leaking at the selector valve and the floor, which that was a new part. I don't know, it happens. But at the same time, I can't drive customer trucks for 6 months while I'm trying to shake out any potential problems. But I know, like talking with Anything Scout in there, or the New Legend trucks that they do, they put a lot of miles, like well over 1,000. I think it's closer to 2,000 miles on the completed builds in all different aspects before they let them go. And I'm the same way. When we finish a truck, I drive it home for at least a week, check it and how it starts in the, cold mornings, how it does after a hot drive. Does it vapor lock if it has a carburetor? Does it take fuel at the gas station well? Does it, what quirks does it have that we need to shake out, just to get rid of that? And so you don't always see that with these flipper builders that are trying to make money, So when you see that super high dollar, like you have to have really high dollar expectations too. So, don't fall don't assume that because a Scout sold for 330 and then marketplace is full of $100,000 Scouts, that's the market, because it's not. It is considerably lower than that. The Scout market has actually softened up some over the last year and a half. Trucks that would have been 60, 70K are now selling for 40. And some people are willing to deal. They might have spent 50 grand on a restoration 8 or 10 years ago, and then put 10,000 miles on it. And now they're trying to sell it for 50 grand. And that's a reasonable thing. I saw one the other day that looked real nice and they did good work and it was done reputably. And the guy's asking like 39,000. And I guarantee you that 10 years ago, he probably spent 40 grand on the restoration. So, I don't want to say it held its value, but he's not losing money and you're going to end up with a good truck, in that price range. But then also the other side of that coin is if you want to have a really nice truck built, you're not going to get a really nice truck built for 40 grand. Not in today's world. I mean, I don't think anybody is under 100 grand right now for frame off restorations with repowers. I mean, I think it's roughly for us right now, Scout 2 with an international drivetrain, full restoration, frame off and all that. I mean, you're like 80 grand. You want LS and all that other stuff, now you're 140. And that's the going rate across the board, I believe, is that, you can't get much done at a reputable shop for less than 100, which is, that's, it's hard to wrap my head around that because I came from the old school where we were getting Scouts for free. And if somebody was trying to sell a nice Scout for 5 grand, they were crazy. Like, I remember a really nice, beautifully built SS2 sold probably 20 years ago for like 18 grand. And that was unheard of. Like, bizarre. Like, somebody was just wasting money is like how we thought about it. But that same Scout in today's world would have been, an $80,000, $90,000 Scout easy. So, it's just, I guess the point is just, beware. Like, don't fall for the trick of pricing. Don't think that, I don't want to be a Danny Downer, but you don't have a $200,000 Scout 800 in your driveway. Like, it's just, unless you had a new Legend build you one and it just rolled out of the showroom, that's about the only way you're going to have a $300,000 Scout. So yeah, just be realistic when you're shopping around, pay attention, don't fall for the pricing, but be prepared to spend money on a good truck. Like, that's the other side. Like, pay attention, look for that stuff, look for the wiring, look for, are they using name brand stuff in the appropriate places? I'm always a little leery when I see like King shocks on a stock Scout. Like, those are $400 a piece shocks on a truck with a 4-inch Skyjacker lift. You're like, well, why are those on there? You're not to that performance level. So it's either somebody had some extra shocks they were trying to get rid of or laying around and, it doesn't make sense. So again, just watch for what they're doing, do your homework. If you're buying something from a distance, try to find somebody to go look at it for you. Cause buying stuff sight unseen is dangerous. I've got tricked a few times on that. I went to buy a crew cab Ford pickup years ago, drove all the way to the valley, like 4 hours, and get there and like the clutch didn't work. The guy just happened to mention that he'd been, like a semi truck, like, floating gears and shifting it. And he's like, oh gosh, yeah, I've been doing it for so long, I kind of forgot. I'm like, yeah, right. Like I ended up not buying it because of that and a few other reasons. Because I'm glad I drove there to look at it, because I could have, if I was buying it sight unseen, it looked nice, but would have bit me in the butt had I just bought it based on the guy's word. So again, I don't know where I'm going with this. Just beware and be realistic. And also don't be that guy that puts a Scout up for $200,000. Like, we all know that it's not there. If you think it's worth $200,000, take it to Barrett Jackson, put it on Bring a Trailer, take it to Meekum, one of those auction houses, and let it go for that big money. Or you end up getting humbled by the fact that it only brings $40,000. Like, the market kind of self levels, and there's high end and there's low end, and stuff kind of falls in there where it should. I think on Bring a Trailer, they can actually have a tool where it like graphs the sale price of a make through the years. And I've noticed that, I think somebody sent me a screenshot or something of it, of the trend slowly climbing, but they have like outlier dots where, like, one did sell for $100,000, and one of them sold for $20,000. And then the, average is kind of in the middle there. I don't use Bring a Trailer. I don't buy anything. This business takes so much capital to operate on its own that I don't have the ability to just run out and buy, a $25,000 Scout because it looks cool. Like, if I got $25,000 to burn, I'm buying a parts collection, I'm buying tooling, I'm expanding the shop, I'm doing something else, not just buying a truck because I want a truck. I used to do that back before I realized that it was terrible for the business, because I was being selfish, because I just wanted what I wanted and not what was good for the business. But anyway, I don't use a lot of those sales platforms. I kind of hear this stuff third party through you guys. I get a lot of DMs and text messages from people that are, like, hey, did you see this? And then, of course, I'm like, no. And then they send me the link, or they send me the screenshot, and go over it from there. But my view of the market is more down at the people's level, not up at the sellers. I see it from both sides, but I'm more of a realist, and you have to understand, I got to be real about the market, because if I start putting all my stuff out, if I'm trying to sell a project Scout for $15,000, it's never going to sell, and I'm going to look like the jerk that's trying to make a bunch of money off of junk. The last 800 I sold for $1,500. And it was a 4-speed, like, it had a ton of potential and good options, but I can't keep them all, and I got to be fair, and I got to be real. So, that's the thing about it, is just pay attention to what's out there, use your head, don't get caught up in the hype. Because the other thing is, you don't want to spend a bunch of money and then find out that it's only worth $2,500 in the end, which I've seen that happen too. But anyway, all right. Well, I'm going to hang it up now. I've done enough rambling, and you guys get the point. I got work to do today, so I appreciate you. Thanks for following along. If you want to donate, head over to Patreon, or you can head to Instagram and subscribe to my channel. Be a subscriber on Instagram. Please like and subscribe here on YouTube, if you're there. And until next time, I'm Dan from Binder Boneyard.